Friday morning. Welcome to an extra charged edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV. Hello, Sioux Falls, and Inforum.com. Fourth day of October. The sun is shining certainly today after a thriller last night. If you were watching the football game, you got a heck of a finish. If you were watching the baseball game, you got a heck of a finish. It was a good sports night, and we'll get to all of it here in due time to fully process what went down. But we got a great way to start our Friday show. Unfortunately, I'll say it's the final time we're going to visit with our next guest as the Minnesota Twins season officially came to an end on Sunday. And as, of course, luck would have it, there are 3 American League Central teams still playing baseball on this 4th day of October. As we welcome in the voice of the Twins on Bally Sports North, Cory Provus, making his final appearance with us here this season. I wish it was under better circumstances, but we visited last Friday after that gut punch of a game on Thursday night against the Miami Marlins. I guess, were there any surprises in how the last 3 games played out, Cory, what you saw against the Orioles?
Dom, we'll get to that, but first, congrats on the Mets.
Thanks,
for you last night. I'm shocked you still have a voice today. Now, selfishly, we had the game on. My son and I were watching last night, but I had the Milwaukee radio feed on because I really wanted to hear Euchre call that final out and that final inning. And sure enough, the radio feed was ahead of the visual. So I hear him say and describe Alonso's home run, and I'm like, Coop, uh-oh. And then sure enough, we saw it. So congrats to you on an amazing win and a thrill for Mets fans, and just, boy, a kick in the gut for Milwaukee fans this morning. But, to your point about the question, I mean, I think, what we saw last weekend, it wasn't much of a fight. I think Thursday's game against Miami kind of sealed it. And, yeah, the Twins still mathematically had a chance, but it was unrealistic. They weren't going to be a playoff team. And, they were blowing out in all 3 games. I think they've lost like 10 or 11 in a row now to Baltimore, going back the last couple of years. So it wasn't close, not really all that competitive. Bailey pitched well, 1 bad pitch to James McCann. But it really, Saturday, the national game, there really wasn't much to get into. So it was sad. It was a sad, finish to the season where there's some bright spots, sure, but I can't think about that. I'm still bothered by it. I'm sure, and I hope that the players and staff and fans should still be bothered by what they saw, because losing 27 of your last 39, for that team can't happen. And it did. And that's why the Twin season ended as it did.
And there were moves, Cory, this week with a few coaches being let go. That typically is going to be the case when things happen this way. If the management's going to stay in place and the manager, typically there's going to be changes. I guess we shouldn't be surprised on that, but you can't fire the players, as the old axiom on that, which there's going to be changes, and that's ended up what happening.
Derek Falvey's going to have a press conference today at 11 o'clock, and I think we'll get more detail as to some of the why. I don't know how specific that he'll get, but I think we'll get some more detail into why the changes with that side of the team, and also maybe some operational changes still may be coming. And Derek may have that announcement, this morning as well. It would surprise me if there aren't some moves that it's not so much dugout related, but if there's some operational changes, it wouldn't shock me if we hear something like that, maybe from Derek at his press conference today. But the hitting fell apart, and that's the easy place to go. I don't know the true impact that hitting coaches have. From where I sit, I'd be the wrong guy to ask. It'd be more something for players about the impact that hitting coaches have. I know that David Popkins was really liked, and a guy that worked so hard. And hitting coaches, they have such long days. They are there hours and hours and hours before the game, studying film of their hitters, of the pitchers. And even when when we saw this, the Twins would have these big nights, they put up 15, 16 runs. There'd be the one guy that maybe went 0 for 4, And that would
Yeah.
be the guy that he was most concerned about. It wasn't so much, we did great as a team. That's fine. If there was one guy that did not savor in that kind of experience, that would eat at him that entire night into the next day. So I was sad to see it. Not surprising,
Yeah.
but doesn't mean it made it any easier.
Was there, I guess, warning signs is maybe the too cliche thing to ask you, but was there a series, a game where the red light was flashing like, okay, this may not be, they may not be able to turn this around. I look at the Kansas City series where they just got wiped off the floor in that one. To me, granted, hindsight being what it was, but was there a game series that stands out to you over the last month and a half?
I think the 4-game series in Cleveland.
Okay.
That's when I felt going into that series, and I think maybe we talked about this. Glenn Perkins and I were doing some of those games, and the Twins were starting a stretch of 13 games to finish the year. So it was Cleveland, Boston, Miami, and Baltimore. And we thought that if they just go 6-17, I think I'm 6-7, excuse me, 6-7, they'll get in. And looking back at it, doing some quick math here, they won 2 on the road trip. They won 1. They won 3. They won 3. And look at what happened. Look where they missed the playoffs by a few games. And that was it. So in the manner that in which they lost to Cleveland, it's just like, this late in the year, so much on the line, watching Cleveland clinch a playoff spot, to see that same script play out again and again, I thought maybe this team won't be able to find a way. But then they did that Friday game against Boston. And I was like, okay.
Yep.
And I said at the time it was the biggest win of the year. And then Saturday rained out and then just clobbered. Sunday, there's the doubleheader in Boston. And then I thought, all right, the off day. But then the Tuesday game against Miami.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yep.
That was flat. 4-1, they lose. What's going on here? And that, to me, was all right. This isn't going well. But thinking back to the Cleveland series, I think that series kind of really was the catalyst that kept the Twins out of the playoffs.
That was gut punch central because of how many walk-offs that the Guardians won in that, and the bullpen just couldn't get any big outs at the end. That's they staggered out of that. They didn't ever recover. 3-10. You said 6-7. They need to go. They went 3-10. That's why they're not playing baseball here. It's simple, afterwards to say, okay, there's got to be some major reconstruction here, but I don't know payroll-wise or in terms of flexibility, maybe is the best way to say that, Corey, if they can do that. And it's easy to do it here on October 4th. We're still not even close to when free agency opens. But do you see a massive reconstruction of this roster?
I don't, because, the payroll numbers are going to be what they are.
Right.
But remember that, Pablo Lopez's salary goes up exponentially. And then there are key guys on this team that are going to earn more in arbitration than they have in the past.
Right.
I'm talking about Royce Lewis and Bailey Ober and Joe Ryan, Louis Var. I mean, these guys are going to see some more money. So with that, salaries for many key guys are going to go up based on just the system that baseball has. So I don't see a massive rehaul and roster construction. What I do hope is not an overhaul, but is at least examined with a different perspective, is just some game planning a little bit. Like, I think the Twins are at their best when Matt Wallner is in the game.
Yep.
And Trevor Larnach is in the game. And far too often when they're starting against a righty, but then the righty comes out and it's the 5th inning and a lefty comes in, not a closer, not Josh Hader, but just a lefty. That's tough. I get it.
Yep.
He's in the big leagues. But I feel like we're easy to game plan against because knowing that those lefties are coming out. And while that matchup in the 5th inning probably doesn't look good, Wallner and Larnach, their spot's going to come around again a time or two, and it'll look better in the 6th, 7th, 8th night. So I hope that that's looked at a little bit more. And I was watching some of these playoff games, and even the series leading up to the Orioles series or even the Marlins series, watching the amount of at-bats that Detroit was giving to Riley Green, left-handed batter, Colt Keith, left-handed batter, Parker Meadows, left-handed batter. I'm like, wait a minute. And then Cleveland, Andres Gimenez, left-handed batter. He's in there every day. Josh Naylor, left-handed batter, in there every day.
Right.
I feel like we've written the book on Matt Wallner, Trevor Larnach, Eddie Julian. They can't hit left-handed pitching. I don't. How do we know that? I don't know how we know that. It's one thing if it's the ninth inning, then to me, okay, you lift out a lefty. If there's a tough lefty, if it's Hader, fine. But there's only a few of those in the game. Chapman, Hader, I get it. That makes sense. Ninth inning, here's the game. But I don't look at it like, hey, fifth inning, sixth inning, here's the game. There's still a few
Right.
more innings to play. So I just hope that kind of stuff is studied a bit more, and maybe we don't just pull the trigger on those guys who are key players, who are really important players to your team. Maybe that's examined in a different way as they prep for 2025.
A couple emails to ask you here from viewers that are watching today. Cory, better chance that Christian Vasquez or Chris Paddock is on the roster next season, or both?
I think both.
Okay.
I think both. I mean, they're both earning salary. I mean, Christian Vasquez is set to make, I think, $10 million. I mean, that I don't see the Twins eating $7 million. I mean, he's going to be hard to move. He's going to be hard to move, and so I think he's on the team. Chris Paddock, his salary is pretty reasonable. I mean, the extension the Twins signed him to was not earth shattering. So I think that he's going to be in their plans. Now, I think it's maybe silly to look at it like Chris Paddock going into 2025 is going to give you 30 starts.
Correct.
I don't think they can plan for that.
Yeah.
I just don't. Based on he's the 2 Tommy Johns, he had this forearm injury. I just think if you get Paddock, for 15 to 20, but you plan for that, okay. Have some plan B's and C's. So I think both are on the team.
Okay.
I'd be more surprised if they are not than if they are on the team in spring training.
But to me, the biggest goal, this is my opinion, is a number 2 starter. Whatever they need to do, if it's a trade or to pay, that was the success last year. You saw Lopez and you saw Sonny Gray. That worked to a T. That did not work this year. And Joe Ryan was great and then got hurt. But you need a bona fide number 2 that's going to be your guy next season, in my opinion.
I mean, I like Bailey. I think Bailey Ober showed some great signs this year. I think this was his best season by far.
You're right.
I'm not, Dom, you may be right. I don't know if he's a 2 or if he's a 3, but I would like to see fortifying the rotation a bit more, even at the back end. Getting 4s and 5s is not the worst thing in the world, so that if and when injuries happen, which they do, that you're not just, grabbing it at air here to piece it together. Bless their hearts. I mean, the 3 rookies the Twins leaned on for much of the second half ran out of gas, and it's understandable. But I'm very high on David Festa, and I'm high on Simeon Richardson. I think Zebby, we saw some great things out of him, but look, he was an A-ball to start the year. This was amazing that he came up and was throwing in these meaningful games. He told me as much before that start on Saturday at home against Baltimore. I asked him, I said, if I was going to tell you in spring training, September, you're making these massive starts, would you have been surprised? He said, no way. There's no way I'd be pitching in the big leagues at the end of September in these meaningful games. No way. So those were his words. But I think David Festa is going to be a fascinating guy this winter to follow, because he told us earlier in the season that he wants to work on his curveball. He needs a 4th pitch. And if he has a 4th pitch that's not going to be lights, he wants it to be a curveball. And if his curveball is just average, it doesn't need to be the best curveball in the game. That's going to do his game wonders to have a 4th pitch for hitters to think about, because his slider is good. His fastball has life. Changeup has promise. He needs a 4th pitch. And I think if he can find something to complement the other 3, he's going to be in good shape.
One more email before we go to break. Cory, what do you foresee as the Twins' outfield lineup in 2025?
I see Larnach, Buxton, and Wallner.
Okay.
That's kind of how I look at it. I still think they'll look for a right-handed hitting outfielder that can play the corners and maybe even some center. Michael A. Taylor 2 years ago was great. Manuel Margot this year was not.
Yeah.
So they need to find somebody like that, a right-handed hitting outfielder that can play defense. And Derek said as much too on Sunday in an emotional kind of. I didn't see this coming, and I was lucky enough to be there. But he mentioned the defense, and the Twins had a bad year defensively too. I mean, they really did. Left field was a dark hole for most of the season. Center was good when Byron was playing, and Kepler was okay in right this year. But I thought Wallner looked better in right. I thought Matt looked better, and I think he goes into 2025 as the starting right fielder.
And as we said often here, we'll go to break. We have a little segment here with Cory. every time Wallner hit the ball, he scalded it. You mentioned it on the broadcast. I don't know how many times. Every time he hit it, it went far.
If you give the moose a cookie,
Yeah.
he's going to ask for a glass of milk, and he's going to hit the ball 450 feet. I mean, yeah, I mean, what a turnaround his season was.
Yes. Yep.
And that line when he came up on that Sunday, July 7th, and he was barreling up the ball. The exit velocity was comparable to that of the elite hitters in the game, the Otanis and the Judges and the Sotos. I mean, what he was doing was pretty impressive. And also too, when he got hurt, I think that last week of the season, that also to me was all right. This is it.
Took a lot of air out.
Can't afford. They can't afford. They were going to see a lot of right-handed pitching.
Yep.
They can't afford to lose him. He was too good. He was their best hitter the last probably 6 weeks of the season, and they lost him. And that was again game set match.
We'll break. We'll come back. One more segment with Cory. We look ahead to the rest of the baseball postseason with 3 AL Central teams still alive in the American League's Final Four. Just getting started on Hot Mic. We're back right after this. Back on Hot Mic, our final segment with Cory Provus for the year. His appearance is brought to us by Welton's Tire Service. I just want to say, before we run out of time, this has been so awesome. Our viewers and listeners have loved having you on. I love it as a fellow broadcaster because I get something out of it every time. So I know this is a lot to do, especially on top of game days, but we really appreciate you doing this for the last 6 months, bud. It's been fantastic.
I've had a great time. I really have, and I hope to do it again next year because it's been a great partnership and friendship, and great getting to know you. And when I saw your area code on your phone, I knew we'd click. So I've enjoyed it.
I appreciate that, and we'd love to have you back in 2025. So let me ask you: when you see there are 3 AL Central teams left, what was the immediate reaction? Because the way the Tigers are playing, I think we all thought, boy, they're going to be tough to beat, but they win 2 games in Houston is awfully impressive.
I did not see. I'm not as shocked with that as I am with the fact that the Royals,
what they did,
went into Baltimore and swept the Orioles. Maybe because I just saw Baltimore, but they got healthy at the right time. They got Corbin Burns. They've got this unbelievable lineup. I did not see them scoring, 1 run?
Yeah.
In those 2 games. I mean, the Orioles, I don't know how you can, say this without being obvious. I mean, what a bust.
Yep.
I mean, last year's one thing. All right, this young team, 100+ wins. They had the bye, swept by the Rangers, fine. But then you learn from that, and they still had something to play for this last week. And, oh, my gosh, did they just not show? And I don't know how you can say that's not a choke. I mean, that is unbelievable that Baltimore got bounced in the manner that they did. I did not see that coming. But, Cleveland, I think Cleveland's still the team to beat. I think they're just so good. They're so good. And the Tigers, though, have something special going right now.
Oh.
They really do. The Royals are playing with house money here, going to Yankee Stadium. But, I don't really watch too much postseason baseball unless, obviously, the Twins are in it, the Brewers are in it, no more, or the Cubs are in it. Then I'll unplug. But I'm probably going to watch that Tigers-Guardians series. I think that, to me, of all the series, and how can I not watch Padres-Dodgers?
Yep.
I mean, I want to watch Ohtani finally in October. I think that's going to be amazing. But there's just some intrigue that I really have, especially with that Tigers Guardians series, that I'm fascinated to watch.
Detroit's got a little of that Texas mojo that the Rangers, I think, had last year. Don't you agree?
They do. I think you're right. And AJ Hinch, his postseason resume is pretty impressive. So he's pushing all the right buttons. They got one starter and all these openers and bullpen games, and Patrick Royce's going nuts, seeing all these openers succeed and freaking out. But it's something else, and they're getting some clutch hitting, and all their bench players are stepping up. You're right. They've got some of that Arizona, Texas magic going right now here in October.
I'm obliged to ask you about the National League. Do my Mets have a chance against the Phillies?
Yes,
I think so.
Yeah, they have had their backs against the wall here for months.
Yes,
and they have found a way to come up with dramatic win after dramatic win. I still think the hardest place to win in the game is Philly.
Yeah.
And I think this year the Phillies had like a 71% home winning percentage or something. So winning there is tough. But the Mets have been there before. They've been there for
Yeah.
hostile games and regular season. It's loud, so I don't that won't overwhelm them. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all. I think that's going to be a great series. I think the Mets have some magic too going right now.
So do the Padres. The Dodgers have not. It's the Dodgers have been known to flame out too. So it would not surprise me if San Diego does something there and beats them.
No question.
Yeah.
And I still, Luis Ariz, 3 batting championships now, and this year he's going to need surgery on his thumb at the off. He's doing this with a torn ligament in his thumb, and he's still showing up. He's still getting his hits in that lineup every single day. Not playing great defense, fine. They need him to hit, get on base, don't strike out, and he's doing that and putting the ball in play. And so, yeah, I think San Diego is rocking right now too. It is a good field. I mean, I think there's some great storylines here in the postseason, and I hope people do tune in and ratings are better than they have been in the past.
I'm obligated. My last question. We saw the news with Diamond this week. I know we went around the bend, you and I, on this all season long. To ask you to make a prediction on that is folly, so I won't do that. But the hope for 2025 is obviously a more stable operation for the Twins. Do we make anything out of this, or is it shouldn't pay attention on the Diamond and the Bally stuff that happened this week?
Well, I've already got myself in trouble for speaking out about this as I did in the offseason. So I don't know. I don't know where this goes.
Yeah.
But they have to make Twins baseball more accessible.
Yes.
Just have to make it more accessible. Blackouts have to go away. And I don't know where this ends up, what kind of partnership they have if they're back with Bally, but with other arrangements that allows more of an in-market streaming option than has been available. But I'm also, part of me is I'm not ready just to say, hey, get rid of Bally's here, because these are people that I've gotten to know and I work with and who have nothing to do with these decisions being made that could be out of a job. I mean, there's many people here that I know, some you see on air, many you don't, that are so talented and work so hard and have nothing to do with the ability for you to see games or not. That is way above their pay grade. But this is their livelihood. So that's why I'm not just like, hey, great, we're something. No, I mean, there's a lot of people that could be without work around here that I care deeply about.
We'll follow it all winter long. Have a great winter. I know you're going to do an awesome job calling some college hoops, and we'll visit again next season, all right?
All right, Dom. Appreciate it, buddy. All the best in LGM.
I appreciate it. There he goes, Cory Provus, voice of the Minnesota Twins on Bally Sports North, and we appreciate his visits, those sponsored by Welton's Tire Service. We appreciate them for sponsoring his segments, and I hope you got as much out of that as I did all season long. We had him on for 6 months, the entire breadth of the baseball season, each and every Friday, and it was great. And he was as honest there as he has been all season long. He mentioned he got himself in trouble on the Bally deal, and, we went 3 months. How often do we start the show talking about, nobody can watch him anyway? So let's hope that will be resolved. And I just got this as I was saying goodbye to Cory. This may be why they're having a press conference today. The Twins have announced that Thad Levine will depart the Twins organization to pursue new challenges and opportunities, both inside and outside of baseball. The club announced today. Just got this email literally a minute ago. He's been the team's vice president and general manager. Him working with Derek Falvey, the Twins baseball operations director. So there'll be some change at the top as well for the Twins on how they run things for the upcoming baseball season. So we appreciate his time.